Hey y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 255. My name is Jason. I'm the owner of Outdoor Legacy. We specialize in all things night vision and thermal optics for hunters. And as always, I've got my co-host, Hans, from the Hans East Texas YouTube channel. What is going on tonight, Hans?
Well, we've got a jam-packed show. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get to. And for all of y'all that have been asking about the coyote hunting tournament that happened a few weeks ago, and we haven't had a chance to get around to talk about it, stay tuned towards the end of the show. I'll give a recap of that very shortly. And I don't want to spill the beans now, but stay tuned for coyote tournament talk later on. But we're going to be talking about a couple different things. We're going to be talking about different form factors of scopes. And when you hear somebody say form factors, is basically just the design of the scope. And there's a couple of them to choose from that we're going to be talking about. And we're also going to be talking about battery systems and battery setups and all of that power talk, Jason. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things.
I think that there's some guys hearing this right now, like, oh my gosh, this is like watching paint dry. And I get that, man. If you're not interested in it, totally makes sense. But it's something that Hans and Ashley and I here at Outdoor Legacy, we hear this a lot. Guys call and they're interested in buying a scope, but they don't know where to start. They don't, may not have a lot of experience, or maybe they have some experience, but it's just with one style of scope. And it's like, okay, so some of these scopes look like a daytime scope and some of them don't. And what are the advantages or disadvantages of one versus the other? And then, we start getting into the different battery systems. There's a lot of battery options. And it's funny because I think that there's some guys that there's definitely not one size fits all on the battery system. There are guys who are like, I wouldn't ever own one of those. And then there's other guy like, I would never own one of those. And so everybody, and that's what's cool. There's a lot of options and you can mix and match and you can figure out what's right for you. And so what this show is just for you guys that are, you're starting to look for a scope, maybe a new scope, and you're trying to kind of lay this out. You're looking around, but you go, man, all these different styles, all these different batteries. We just want to kind of give you some pros and cons of each, and maybe that'll help shorten down when your time frame when you're looking for a new scope.
Yep. So, with that being said, let's jump into scope, style, form factor talk. So, for all of y'all out there that are not watching this on YouTube, let's say you're listening in your truck on the way to work, I'm going to try to describe this the best as I can. I'm holding up a scope right now, and this is what we're going to call a traditional thermal style scope. And if you're not seeing it, it is what you picture if you're familiar with the old Pulsar trails, if you're familiar with the Hogster, that more compact. Some people call it like a brick, style, but it's just that rectangle, more compact design of scope. We're calling that traditional for the sake of naming it for the show. And then as we refer to the 30 millimeter tube style of scope. So this is what you would think of if you have seen the Pulsar Thermion, the iRay bolts, the AGM adders. That is the tube style 30 millimeter scope. So just about every brand has a version of both, or had at one time a version of both. Pulsar has now gone over really almost 100% to the tube style, other than their Talion that they have right now. But we're going to be talking about traditional, which is the older style, brickier look, and the 30 millimeter tube style. So going to start out with the advantages of the traditional, and this is the more compact scope. So as you can see, just looking at these compared to each other, you look at this is the Pulsar Thermion Duo, and this is the iRay Ricoh GL35 side by side. The traditional thermal scope is much more smaller. Much more smaller.
Much more small.
I said it. It didn't sound. Yeah, it sounded weird when I said it, and sounds even weirder now. After I'm gonna have to go back in during the edit process and hear it 10 more times. But much more small. Yeah. So it's much smaller, thought of, and more compact. People when they call up, and let me back up a little bit. A lot of people call up, and when they're deciding on the scope, there's so many different things that is going through their head. Resolution, the features that they want, the battery system that they want, the magnification that they want. Rarely, though, does somebody call up and have a decision based on the style of scope they want, traditional or tube style. And that's a very important thing to think about when you're deciding on a scope, because it really it determines the type of rifle that you're going to be shooting it on in a lot of cases, or what type of setup that you're trying to build, whether it's a compact setup, whether it's a bolt action full setup. So the form factor is very important to the overall decision of the scope. But there's also people out there, Jason, as you know, that say, I don't like the tube style scopes, or I like the tube style scopes, I don't like the other scopes. And so a lot of it has to go with just personal preference and, I guess, eye appeal, and what they feel like looks better. But there's a lot of people out there that say that they really like the compactness of the traditional style thermal scope. It is much smaller in design and weight. I think some of the other advantages are going to be that for people that want to be able to take this on and off the rifle and scan with it. There's a lot of people out there that are using this as a dual purpose of scanning with it and shooting with it. This is going to lend to that application a lot better. If you look at a tube style scope, trying to take this off and scan with it, I tell people ask me like, well, with the tube style scope, is it something you can scan with? You can, but you would hate life. You're going to hate life trying to scan with a tube style scope. But these compact traditional scopes are going to be much better for doing that. So the compactness allows you to be able to take it off, hold it with one hand, and scan with it. And again, with a good QD mount, like you can see that's on this, an American Defense mount, with a good QD mount, you can take it on and off the rifle and use it as a scanner. Now, a lot of people say, is that practical, using it as a scanner and scope? That's a whole nother discussion. Yes, at some point you can do it, but at some point you're going to want a monocular. And, again, another conversation. But another advantage, I would say, a lot of times these are going to have removable batteries. So whether it's CR123 batteries, or like this has a proprietary, this GL35 has a proprietary I-ray battery in it. A lot of people really like removable batteries, and internal non-removable batteries scares people a lot. And Jason, you and I hear about that a lot, about the internal battery and the questions. And we'll talk more about that in our next conversation about battery systems. But this, again, a lot of times have a removable battery. Now, this one right here with the removable battery on the side, some of these also have an internal, like this one has an internal non-removable and removable battery. But again, a lot of times they do have two CR123 batteries. Now, those are the advantages. Small, compact, you can use it as a monocular, you can take it on and off. Lightweight, using it as a scanner. The disadvantage, and this is a big disadvantage, if you are wanting to run this on a bolt action rifle, I'm going to tell you, you're probably not going to get the eye relief that you want that's going to be most comfortable. Some people, you'll see pictures online or pictures on Instagram of people putting traditional thermal scopes on a bolt action rifle, and they say it works just fine, and it might just work just fine for them. But if you're a betting man, this is not the bet that I would make.
No.
If I was shooting a bolt action rifle, or at some point I felt like I was going to be switching my traditional scope over to a bolt action rifle, I personally would not go with one of these compact scopes, because the eye relief is not going to be ideal for putting it on a bolt action rifle. That's the biggest disadvantage. And when people say, one of the first questions that Jason and I will ask when somebody calls in, what type of rifle are you shooting? And they'll say AR. And I say, at some point, do you ever see yourself switching back and forth to a bolt action? And if they say yes, I will immediately start to talk about tube style scopes. If they say nope, it's only going to be AR only forever, then the traditional style is definitely the conversation to have. But The advantage is a big advantage. I'm sorry, the disadvantage is a big disadvantage. And we'll talk about, I'll let Jason talk about the tube style scopes and the advantages and disadvantages. But the trend that you can see in the popularity of the 30 millimeter tubes scopes is growing, and for a lot of different reasons.
So I'm going to say this: we may not get to talk about your coyote hunt again today because we are going to run out of time. I can already tell you.
No, we got to squeeze it in. I've teased it.
Yeah.
I've
So
said if it's 2 minutes, we'll have to.
okay. So it's a short story anyway.
It is. It is. It is.
All right. So here's the deal. Let's talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of those 30 millimeter tubes, and then I'm going to go back and just say a couple things about what Hans was talking about there. So the 30 millimeter tube, the daytime scope design that he held up there, as Hans mentioned, there is every manufacturer, I shouldn't say every, that's not true. Most manufacturers now have some of their scopes in this daytime scope design, and they're very, very popular. There was a huge resistance when these first hit the market because why? Well, it's change and it looked different. But it has grown on people. And, we've got companies like Pulsar that are basically all in on it. And there's some good reasons why. So, number one, I think this is obvious. 4 fixed stock rifles, bolt action rifles, anything with a fixed stock that you can't collapse and get closer to the scope, it's perfect for. That is what it is made for. Now, sure, it works on ARs just fine, but for these fixed stock rifles, it's really what you need. Now, I'm going to go back because I want to bring this up before I forget. Hans made the comment that, like the scope he was holding up there, that this isn't going to work well on a fixed stock rifle. I know there's going to be the guy screaming, but wait a minute. That iRay GL35 comes with a long mount that works on a bolt action or on a fixed stock rifle. It does. It is not quick detach. It is not return to zero, but it does come with a long mount. It will work. It's not ideal. It's not the best case scenario, but it will work. You can't pop it off, use it as a handheld, put it back on without re-zeroing it, all those sorts of things. But some scopes, not all, have that long mount option. That is not, I would say it like this. The vast majority of these smaller, more compact scopes do not have that option. All right. Some do, most do not. So that's why, again, can you make that work? Okay, probably, but it's not ideal. The 30 millimeter tube is perfect for a bolt action style rifle. And that is why Hans said, immediately when somebody says, well, I might switch it over to my 270, boom, I'm going on a 30 millimeter tube every time.
I feel
That's
like
just the way it needs to go.
I feel like when somebody's, trying to make something work like that, it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. They're trying and trying to make it work. And you even hear about people talking about, well, what about, rail extenders and Picatinny rail extenders. And then you talk about stacking components and what problems that could lead to, instead of getting the one that's best for what they're trying to do, just trying to force it to work.
Tool.
Yeah, trying to force it to work,
Buy the right tool for the job. Guys, listen, I'm going to go off on my little rant right here because this is the big difference. I cannot tell you how many guys over all the years that these style of scopes have been out have called back and said, well, I said even before they came out, guys were buying these other style scopes. They call back in 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 years, and they say, hey, I'm trying to put this on my bolt action rifle and I can't get the eye relief. What do I need to do? And I'm like, sorry, there's not an option for your scope. There's no extended rail. I don't know what you're going to do. Well, I've got to get it on there. Well, sorry. I mean, there's just, and then you get this fresh, well, I got this $5,000 scope or this $3,000. I get it. Yeah. But they make a scope that is truly the one size fits all. I mean, this 30 millimeter scope is perfect on an AR. And I'm going to go ahead and dispel a myth. I have guys that say, well, I run an SBR or I run a pistol and I just can't have that big long tube on there because it's going to look ridiculous. Guys, I haven't shot an AR with a 16 inch or longer barrel in 5 years. I shoot from 10.5 inch to 12.5 inch. And my preferred choice is these tube style scopes. They look fantastic. Every picture that I've ever posted in the last 5, 6 years is on a maximum of a 12-inch barrel. They look great. So, I mean, that's my opinion. They look great. They're definitely not way too long. So
Yeah.
don't let that be a concern. I think you need to buy what's going to fit you. Now, if you're never going to put it on an AR, I'm sorry, never going to put it on a bolt action, then who cares? Buy what you want at that point. But if you ever think you might, definitely lean towards these 30 millimeter tubes. They're obviously, that's what they're designed for, work great for that. I think another advantage of the 30 millimeter tube is especially for guys that are coming from daytime hunting only. A lot of times these are older guys and or maybe just guys who are just not big into technology, and there's a comfort in that daytime scope design because they say that doesn't look like a computer. That looks like the scope that I've grown up shooting. And so they go, oh, I like that idea. I also do believe that while I don't think any of these scopes are too complicated for anybody to figure out, they're really not. I do think that the scopes with the 30 millimeter tube, the daytime design, are very easy to run because you have normally a button pad back there at the back where the eyepiece is. Hans can show that. And then you normally have another control knob, whether it's on the side in the case of the Thermion or up on the top in the case of some of the iRay bolts. So the point is you got 2 points of control. It's really easy. You're spinning a dial. It just makes people feel more comfortable. So I think that's another advantage to guys who are first getting into this and they look at one of these traditional block or brick style scopes and it just looks like a little microcomputer and they're like, I don't know about that. So I think that's nice as well. And it's just that familiar look and feel. Now, cons. One thing that some people think is that, and it's funny because I have people, I guess, go both ways. Some people think that the small compact style scope is going to be lighter. Some people think that the daytime scope design is going to be lighter, or vice versa. They think it's going to be heavier. The truth is, it really just kind of depends. Generally speaking, I would not say that the 30 millimeter tube scopes are lightweight. I would say they're just really kind of right in the middle. Yeah. There are definitely traditional thermal style scopes that are just as heavy or heavier. And then there's vice versa. There's some of the smaller scopes like the AGM rattlers and the bearing Yoders and Hogsters. Some of those are definitely lighter because they're very small and compact. So, weight, I think it just depends. You just got to look at the weight if that's a really big deal to you. But man, I've got some guys on the phone and we've sat around and they have worried over 2 or 3 ounces. And I'm thinking like, man, I mean, I could hold them both in my hand and I can't tell the difference in 2 or 3 ounces. Yeah, so exactly. I think you got to go with what makes the most sense for you. Another thing that can be a con, and we're going to get into this more talking about the batteries, but to date, as of right now, 2023, I should say, all of the tube style scopes have internal, non-removable, rechargeable batteries. You cannot take them out. Now, they also all have secondary battery pack systems that are removable. Again, we'll talk about that some more, but it's one thing if you're just absolutely an anti-internal battery guy, then the tube style scope is probably not going to be best for you. And then Hans already brought this up. I think it's a very good point. You just generally speaking can't use the daytime scope design scopes as a handheld. And I can tell you this because Hans and I, we are always testing scopes, it's just nonstop. Top of my gun safe is just covered in scopes, and I go pick them up and go outside and go look. And when I'm testing them side by side, I don't mount them because I don't want to go out and have to hold up my rifle, go put it on a tripod to look through it for 30 seconds or 5 minutes if I'm on my back porch looking out across my pasture. So I'll definitely leave these things off in the initial testing stages of just being able to put them side by side. So with all that said, these tube-based scopes I'm using as a handheld
Yeah.
all the time. So I can tell you this for, I mean, I got one right now. I got two. I can tell you it's no fun. It does not, you're holding it with two hands, and that just gets old really, really quick. So
Mm-hmm.
does it work in a bind? Sure. But you should never buy a 30 millimeter scope and say, hey, I'm going to take this off and use it as a handheld when when I'm in the field or whatever. Now, one last thing that I want to go back, and I'll be real quick, talking about advantages and disadvantages of the more traditional style thermals, is Hans made the comment about, using it as a handheld, taking it off, and, we can get into that whole taking it off while you're hunting, trying to slam it back on there when a coyote's come running up. Yeah, we don't think that's a good decision or a good method, but I get it. Sometimes you have to do that. But I will say a big advantage for a lot of people is they will take it off their rifle when they're outside of hunting season, and then it is a great handheld. They're just using it in their, while they're deer hunting or out checking cows or riding around in the truck, or they're not like in the heat of the moment taking it off and on. They're just using it as a general handheld, and they do work really well for that. So I think that is a big advantage when it comes to the handheld debate, that
Absolutely.
you can use them, again, outside of hunting season for nothing but a handheld.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we bumbled through all that. Let's roll on in here because we're pressed for time. Let's talk about some battery systems. Now, I'm going to go ahead real quick, and I'm going to mention the three types, and then we'll each kind of, discuss these in a little more detail. But you've got fully removable batteries.
Mm-hmm.
These are going to be your scopes that, well, hang on, let me just say, you got fully removable, you've got internal only. So that's only a battery you cannot take out, you can recharge. Then you have a combination. The combination of I can take one battery out, but this other battery I can't. So that's the three: internal, completely removable, and then a combination of both. So if we start with the fully removable, this is going to be where thermals started. All right, CR123A batteries. That's where that's what most people think of when we think of the older style scopes. A lot of scopes still use these CR123As. One thing about those scopes is they're normally smaller, lighter weight, and more compact, because those little batteries, those little CR123As, are that small. It takes two of them, and there's this space that big. It does not take much to get those batteries in there, and again, they don't weigh much. So that is one style. You've also got scopes now and monoculars and stuff that take 18650s. Only one removable 18650, or maybe two, or some of the other, I know like Infraray, iRay, they're running some different batteries like 26650s and some other kind of, not as common batteries. But again, these are generic, removable, rechargeable batteries. And then we've got scopes that have fully removable batteries, but they're proprietary batteries. That would be something like a Pulsar Talion, or I'm trying to think what else has that. I know, like the iRay cabins, those are monoculars, the Axions. I'm sure there's some more. I didn't write anything else down here, but I know, like, again, is the Pulsar Talion is a good example of that. And the iRay Rico, like the MK1s, and like the old Pulsar Trails, that was a proprietary battery, fully removable. That's what I was trying to think of. So again, you've got the proprietary, but it's removable. You've got, again, 18650, 26650 rechargeables, and then the CR123As again. But you take all the batteries out if you want to.
Yep. So let's talk about you want to talk about the internal batteries?
Yeah, let's talk about internals, because internals, there's really not much there.
Because I can hear the collective groan of people when you mention internal batteries, because it is, I would say, the biggest concern that you hear from people when you're talking about battery systems is internal batteries. You hear it on when people reply to reviews on YouTube, when people call into us and ask about scopes and the internal batteries. The biggest question is, if the batteries on the inside go dead, do I just have basically a paperweight? And so the biggest, I would say the advantages of having the internal batteries is it's less to worry about. It's easy to charge. You just plug in the whole unit. And these are typically monoculars that have internal only batteries.
Yeah, internal only. I
Yeah,
want to
internal.
be clear.
So they're easy to charge. They're easy to manage. I mean, you're not having to keep up with a set of batteries or losing batteries. I mean, it's everything's just kind of there. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is, people's concern about that if the batteries on the inside go dead, does it? I mean, do I have to throw my scope away or buy a new one or my monocular? The good news is most of these internal batteries, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, man, we rarely ever have an internal battery that comes out and is just dead out of the box or a problem with it.
Very rare.
They last a long. We've had good luck with all of the manufacturers that have internal batteries that the batteries are lasting a good long time. Also, if you buy a monocular or an optic with an internal non-removable battery, I do not know of one manufacturer that has said that they will not replace them. So that includes, Pulsar, AGM, IRA. Yeah, I mean, all of these companies will replace the batteries for you, whether it's in warranty and they are covered under warranty or out of warranty. You can send the optics back in to have replaced by somebody here in the United States, so you're not having to send them across the world. Right. All of them have facilities. All these manufacturers have facilities here in the United States that these batteries can be replaced, in their offices here in the United States.
So I want to say something real quick because I want to go on the record saying what you just said is all correct, but the question does come: what happens in 5 years after it's out of warranty, or 10 years, or 15 years? Guys, I'm going to shoot you straight. There's going to come a point they're not going to replace that internal battery. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what that is, but there's going to come a point. I mean, I've got all kinds of outdated electronics around my house, things that cost thousands of dollars that I'm going to go throw in the dump one day. Probably already should have.
Old cell phones.
And they cannot be, cell phones and TV, they can't be worked on. There's going to come that day. Now, I don't know when that day is, but every manufacturer currently that makes these scopes that have internal batteries say, number one, it's covered under warranty. When it's out of warranty, for a reasonable fee, we will replace that battery. No big deal. And again, I don't know what that time frame is. So if that is the long term, I always say sell your scope when the warranty goes out. If it really let some other guy worry about that. But with that also said, is the batteries, we really don't have a big problem. And I know Hans mentioned this. One big concern is if it goes dead, is my scope toast? So far, again, and I always give these disclaimers because some company will come do something crazy tomorrow. And so as of right now, Q1, quarter one of 2023, no one to date is making a scope with an internal battery that will not also run on a USB battery pack.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that up because that's
what that means is if your scope, we have this idea of, okay, there's a battery in here and it dies, paperweight. No, you just can't use that battery. That's one power source. But every one of these scopes has a USB port on the side that you can plug in a $25, $30, $40 USB battery pack and go run it for 8 to 24 hours. Way longer than that internal battery would run. You can do that. So number one, your scope is not a paperweight. Right. Any of these scopes that have internal and removable batteries will also run off of the removable batteries. So the big fear to me, and I get it, guys, I really do. It's a bunch of money. Internal battery, you can't get to it. I get the fear on it, but I think we've come so far now where there's so many of these optics out there. I'm talking tens of thousands, and there's just not a huge cry, and they've been out for years now. Yeah. So I just don't see it as a big giant thing. What I would say to you is this: if you're just adamant, no, I'm not going to do it, then that's fine. There are other options for you. I just talked about fully removable batteries. Now, there's gives and takes. You may not get the battery life. You may be dealing with little disposable batteries that cost $2 a piece, and you got to throw those away every 2 hours. But that's a give and that's a take, and you've got to decide what works best for you. So I tell you what, let me just roll in this real quick. We've basically already talked about it, but it's the units, the combo. They have both internal and the removable. You're holding one of those. That's the Rico G. Then all of the tube style scopes that we talked about, the thermions, the bolts, the adders, they've all got a combination of both. But I think this is the big thing. What are the advantages and the disadvantages to proprietary versus non-proprietary batteries? And I think that's where we can, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. Then I'm going to let Hans roll into the advantages of the removables and all those. So when we get to the proprietary, it's the same thing kind of as the internal. There's always that concern of, okay, I have to buy this battery. All right, this is the battery I have to buy. It will run off of this. What happens when this battery dies? Well, you buy another one from the manufacturer. They're normally not cheap because, again, they got to make them. And they're not making them like little Energizer battery, double A's or something. And so you're tied to their battery. And that's a concern a lot of people have. The non-proprietary, I think if Hans and I got to choose, the number one best option out there is a non-proprietary generic rechargeable battery, like the 18650. That is, in my opinion, the best option, because I can buy these affordably. I can choose a ton of different brands. And if that battery dies, it costs me 10, 15, 20 bucks. I throw it in the trash. I buy more. I think that's the best case scenario, but there's also very few options. There's only 2 or 3 scopes on the market that are doing that. So that might not be an option for you. The other benefit is when you take something like a proprietary battery, like that battery that he's holding there in that Rico G. I think the battery life, and don't quote me on this, I don't have my numbers in front of me, that little battery is $79 and it gets like 8 hours of runtime. 8 hours of runtime in that scope. That's insane. You will not get that out of an 18650. I mean, it's just stupid amount of battery power packed in there. So again, I think there's pros and cons to both ways, but again, it comes down to what you want and what you think is best. And again, there's always these options for these CR123A type batteries, and that's what a lot of these scopes have: fully removable, disposable, whatever works best for you.
Yeah. So the advantages, I think, of removable batteries seem pretty obvious, but a lot of people really, I don't think, understand all of the advantages of it. But really, with removable batteries, again, you're taking away the concern of internal batteries, not being able to remove it. So, people always think, well, if I can at least take the batteries out, then I can always buy spares or load up on proprietary batteries. But the good thing about it is you can. Whether it's CR123s, 18650s, proprietary batteries, you can always buy spares. If the battery goes dead or no good, you can throw it away and you've got others to run on. And also, you're not having to charge the scope. You're not having to charge an internal battery. You're basically just replacing the batteries, charging other batteries, your spare batteries, but you're not having to do it in the scope. I would say that the cons of this, of fully removable batteries, overall, you're going to have a shorter battery life, and you're having to spend money on extra batteries. And that's the thing is, proprietary batteries are going to be much more expensive than your throwaway batteries, but you're in general going to get more life out of them. But you're talking about $80 to $100 a piece, depending on the batteries. But again, you're going to have a longer battery life with it, and it's you are spending that extra money, but you can have as many batteries as you want. You can have a whole pocket full of them when you go out in the field.
So moving on, I agree with that. We talk about internal batteries only. I think the pro is there's less to worry about with them. You don't have to keep up with a whole bunch of stuff. Usually the battery life is really good because it's a big battery inside there. But I think obviously we're not going to dash it out and beat that horse again. But there is the concern of I have nothing but this internal battery. What's going to happen when it goes dead? And then I think you've got, um, you do have to stop to go recharge that scope or plug it into a USB
Hmm.
battery pack. But that's, I know some people don't want to go do that. So I think that's where the combination of internal and removable is honestly, I think in our current situation, it's probably the best. It's
Hmm.
probably the best option. I mean, yeah, I mean, Hans and I already said we'd love to have 18650s or some style of fully removable battery, something cheap we can go buy, but we are going to give up some battery life doing that. But we would really like that. But I think that probably the best case right now is this combination.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You're getting the best battery life for sure. I mean, you're getting,
Hmm.
gosh, the new GL35. What would we say? 13 hours of runtime on both batteries, the
Hmm.
internal and return removable. The Pulsar
Yeah,
Thermions are getting 10 hours of runtime on
I
certain
think close to
models.
10. Yeah, nine
Yeah,
or
I mean,
10. Yep.
the Adder's getting 15 hours of runtime. So yeah, these combination setups for battery life, and I think at the end of the day, I think battery life and the amount of time somebody can stay out in the field and hunt without having to worry about recharge or stick new batteries in, probably the most important to a lot of people out there. But we wanted to talk about all these other factors that are involved in different battery types.
Here's what this boils down to. I know there's some of you that are like, oh my gosh, I just lost 40 minutes of my life. I'll never get back because you maybe knew all this and whatever. But there's also a lot of guys that are new to this sport and they really they're wanting to learn about all the differences and it's very confusing. So hopefully that helps some of y'all. But if you're that guy who's still listening, like guys, I just don't know. I'm still confused. You've lost me and I'm not getting to see. Man, we get it. Listen, I know as confusing as this sounds, Hans, myself, our salesman Ashley, the three of us, we do this all day. We talk to guys all the time. We are very happy to help you narrow this down, and we don't have to have this whole big conversation. We're going to ask you a series of questions and say, "Hey, are you going to shoot this type of rifle? Are you going to shoot this? Nope. Okay. How cold are the temperatures where you're hunting? We know we're going to ask. We know what to ask. We've done this enough and we're going to start narrowing this down based on your budget and how you answer these questions. And then we can offer specific suggestions. So if you're still confused, we would love to have your business and help take some of this confusion out of there. You can call us at Outdoor Legacy. That is 877-350-1818. And Hans, myself, Ashley, we are glad to talk through these options with you. And I'm telling you guys, we can make this way, way easier. There's still a lot of choices, a lot of options, things you've got to decide on, things we'll help you decide on. We can't pick the scope for you. Sometimes people want us to do that. We're not going to pick and say, this is the scope. Don't buy it. But we're going to get you down and say, these are some really good options. Maybe it's down to 2, 3 scopes and we can give you the pros and cons of each of those and tell you which we think will do better for your specific situations. But if you are interested in buying a scope from Outdoor Legacy, we would love to have your business and love to help you. So feel free to call us. You can go to our website, outdoorlegacygear.com, and you can go there and see all the scopes and kind of sort by price, see what's in your price range. But as there's more and more scopes coming to the market with more of these options, removable batteries, non-removable batteries, proprietary, it gets confusing. And we are happy to take that confusion out. Now, if Hans has not choked to
I don't
death
know,
over
man. I
there,
can't
I,
promise.
I
Yeah, it's
well, I want to hear his short coyote predator
yeah.
hunting tournament story.
Yes, thank you for taking over. I still feel a tickle in my throat.
Man,
So a lot of people have been asking about the coyote hunting tournament, and as all of you know, in 2022, and this is the Conway Farms coyote hunting tournament. This is the one that Outdoor Legacy is a sponsor of, and really the only one that I do every year. Um, so last year, 2022, we won the world championship. coyote hunting tournament. Got the buckles, the belts. So this year,
World
yeah, world
championship.
championship.
It's a
So
small world. It's a
this
small world.
year, 2023, and a few weeks ago, we had to defend our world championship. We won it last year with 10 coyotes. It's a 17-hour tournament. We won it with 10 coyotes. Jason, it's with much pride and excitement that I report back to you and to the world and all of our listeners that we did not come in last place. We didn't come in first place, but we
Yeah,
didn't come in
right.
last place.
There you go.
We didn't. Well, we didn't get in first, second, or third place. We didn't get any money, but we came in with I think, a very respectable six
Entertainment.
coyotes. 10 coyotes won it, which was what we got last year. We all night we had some activity. We called in. I was the call man, so I was calling, but we called in. I want to say 9 total coyotes, and we walked home with 6 of them. So that's pretty good numbers. Some of those were doubles. A couple of those were doubles that ran in, but I mean, 6 out of 9 that total that we saw. So I think our ratio was pretty respectable. But we had a great time. We didn't win it this year. This is our fourth or fifth year. We've only won it once. We came in second place, I think, once before. But we didn't embarrass ourselves. We did have a respectable showing. Outdoor Legacy and AGM together, we gave away an AGM Adder TS50 to a lucky person. A guy in the Sun actually won it, and the kid was just thrilled to death. I mean, he was so excited about it. So thank you to Outdoor Legacy and to AGM for donating the scope. But we had a nice turnout. We had 21 teams. So every year it's growing a little bit. And I'm going to tell you, it's in Murchison, Texas, which you probably never heard of. It is, you can't even find it on a map. So the fact that we
Yeah.
got 21 teams to go out in the middle of nowhere and sign up for this hunt was great. We had a great turnout, probably the biggest weigh-in turnout that we've ever had. I mean, just so many people there, so many fans of the show, the Late Night Vision show that we got to see and got to shake hands with. So it was good to see everybody there. But we did not defend our world championship belt. Jason, I'm sorry. I feel like a failure of the show, a failure of the company, Outdoor Legacy. I don't even know if I can wear the patch anymore until next year, maybe
That's
when I
true.
can redeem myself. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, we may be looking for your fill in very soon. Just saying.
exactly, exactly.
Hey, at least you killed some. If you'd have come back with no
I
coyotes,
know.
we might have had to fire you. But you got
I feel like
6. I mean, that's pretty
I feel
decent.
like it
In
was
East Texas,
respectable.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I feel it was respectable. But anyway, thank you all for asking about it, because it is. I say it's fun. It's fun while I'm doing it. I really have to pump myself up because I'm getting older, and the excitement of staying out all night is not as the thought is not as exciting as it used to be. But after I do it, I'm like, man, I'm glad I did it. And it was good to do and fun and all that stuff. The weather was good, so I can't complain too much. Until next year, right, Jason?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, guys. Well, I know there have been a lot of people asking, wanting to know if Hans and his team were still
World
the
champions.
regional champions of
World
Murchison,
champions.
Texas, that
World
you
champions.
cannot find on a map. But no, it looked like a great turnout, and they had a lot of great sponsors there, and we want to thank AGM.
Mhm.
For teaming up with us and giving away that scope. That was a big deal. So,
Yep.
guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed this show. We know that this is not the most exciting of shows, but we know there's some guys that are going to hate these styles of shows, but we also have so many people that tell us, listen, you're helping me. I know it, they sit down, they got a notepad, they're listening, they're learning, and they're into the details. And so we hope these shows work for you, but at the same time, we do our other shows. We take time and just do nothing but talk about calling coyotes or calling hogs, and we talk
Mhm.
about do a lot of reviews. That's what this show has really turned into, is a ton of scope reviews, because there's so many optics coming out. But we want to offer a little bit of everything. If
Mhm.
you're looking for reviews, but you're like, man, you guys talk for 30, 45 minutes. Well, if that's true, you didn't make it to hear this part. But if for some reason you accidentally fast forwarded down to here, what I would say is go over on YouTube, go check out Hans's reviews. They're shorter than ours. It's just him. He's doing an overview of the almost all the scopes that we review on here, and that's
Mhm.
Hans, HANSETX, Hans East Texas on YouTube. That way you can watch his reviews over there, and they will be shorter because I'm not there. So it'll be half the length at least.
Right.
So anyway, that's something you can do. You can also find him on Facebook. He's got a Facebook page now, Hans ETX, as well
Mhm.
as on Instagram. I've already told you where to find Outdoor Legacy. We're on all the social medias, but the big thing is the phone number and the website. That's where we would love for you to find us. We would love to have your business. And then the Late Night Vision Show, you're already here, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all those places, as well as the Late Night Vision Show.com. You
Mhm.
can find all the past episodes there.
You talk about people skipping forward in shows. Think about it. There might be some people out there that skipped forward during this whole show just to get to my coyote hunting story.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that did not
Uh,
happen.
Y'all, we will be back next week. We've got more, like Jason talked about, more reviews. Man, I've got scopes I'm picking up all week. Jason's got
A
stuff that we got
lot.
piled up. We've got so much content that we got to get to, but we want to mix in some good old hunting stories too in between there. But we will see y'all next week, next Thursday. As always, next week will be 256, and I don't know. We'll see what it's going to be between now and then. But y'all stay safe in the fields and keep making them bacon pancakes.